Oh, yeah, yeah, great. He was the like, I'm gonna do this. But I have to be iron. Yeah. Good to see you guys. Back here. And it's, they always get tickets to the their sons and everything.
What would you feed here?
So you're seeing them going to college. Okay.
Because sometimes you don't get as much back.
Thank you.
Love to have
She did? She did?
She's got class until 8:30. Hey, Lisa. I got your text today. It's just
She gotta get that 2 years before.
Yes. Yep.
I just put in there that it was.
I don't know how to do it. All right, hopefully I don't get disconnected.
Have a seat.
Okay. I just asked the staff students in the outfit center to please stand and lead us in the pledge. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Good point. They probably don't know.
No, I think they can't. Some of them, you get those that are right before they go into kindergarten, they do.
Penny, how you doing?
Yeah.
I got the plug up here if you need to plug in. Put it up there. I'll see what, that's when I don't use this phone because of that.
Hello. Hi. How you doing today? Hey, how are you?
Yeah, have to give it a minute. Yeah,
I feel good. I had a really cool yeah. Yeah.
I was hoping, you know, for Roma, Jenna.
Jenna, are you rolling us? All right. Oh, it's going? Oh, okay. I didn't see a light or anything yet, so I didn't know. All right, good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order and declare that we have a quorum.
Move we excuse Mr. Orlando Lewis.
Second. I have a motion and a second. I'll call the vote. Mr. Garden? Yes. Dr. Thomas?
Yes.
Dr. Alvin? Yes. Ms. Greco? Yes. Ms. Glover-Jones? Yes. And I'll vote yes. Moving on to 1.03, the adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. I'll call the vote. Mr. Garden? Yes. Dr. Thomas?
Yes.
Dr. Alvin?
Yes.
Ms. Greco?
Yes.
Ms. Glover-Jones? Yes. And I will vote yes. Moving on to 1.04, we have the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to ask our Early Childhood Center students and teachers if they could stand and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. so let's go ahead and start with 1.05, our School of the Month. I'd like to welcome our Early Childhood Center.
Good evening. My name is Donna Butler. I'm the interim principal at the Ritenour School for Early Childhood, and I have the distinct pleasure tonight to introduce to you some wonderful teachers, students, and staff. We get the joy every day of going to school to play. And so who doesn't enjoy playing every day? However, our play has specific skills and activities attached to it, but it's intentional but fun. So Miss Valerie Stanfield, Miss Linda Vocal, Benita Johnson-Bach is a teacher assistant in the audience, Mr. Zach Kinney, and we have Lily, Javon, Samara, and Eli.
Can we start? Okay. All right. The Ritenour School District, in partnership with parents and community, will develop leaders recognized for academic excellence and produce graduates who will become productive citizens and lead lives of personal integrity and fulfillment. And at the School for Early Childhood, we do our part to help create an attitude of lifelong learners and career exploration, even if that's growing up to be Spider-Man one day.
The mission of Ritenour School District is to ensure learning occurs in a supportive environment that enables every student to think critically, solve problems, and develop the knowledge and skills necessary for success in our diverse global society.
We will create an anti-biased, anti-racist system by investing and engaging students in their learning by supporting student and teacher efficacy. So basically, when we use strategies that reflect our students' cultures, their background, their lived experiences, our students are naturally more engaged. And when our students are more engaged, then our practices achieve higher results. And at the School for Early Childhood, one of those practices is learning through play.
So our presentation is called Learning Through Play, the Math Edition. So we're going to give you a sneak peek into how our preschool students learn mathematical skills through play at the Ritenour School for Early Childhood Education. And when we develop our lessons and our lesson plans, we reference the Missouri Early Learning Standards, or the MELS, and these were updated in February of this year. So we have numbers and operations, geometry and spatial sense, patterns and relationships, measurement, and data. So some of our mathematical skills that we explore every day is sorting and patterning. And we have some sorting with leaves by color. We have some A-B patterns with mittens. We have some patterns with boots and shoes. And this was just one of the natural things that occurred. So we snapped a picture of that. And we have Eli down on the bottom, and he is going to tell you about his pattern. All right, Eli, what did you use to make your pattern? Gingerbread, he said gingerbread man blocks. And what else in our classroom do we use to make patterns? Is there any other blocks that we use to make patterns?
Magna blocks.
The Magna blocks. He said Magna blocks. We have lots of different manipulatives during our center time that we use to make patterns with.
Another way that we do sorting, that's embedded into our day, is through cleanup time. The kids have to classify which toys go in the doll area, which toys go, all the cars go into another box. And right now in my classroom, I even have the wooden blocks sorted by tall blocks, by shape, basically, rectangles, blocks with windows inside. And so it makes cleanup time a bigger task and it's a chore, it's hard. And the kids have to really think through it. But they're so proud of themselves when they can get it all sorted out and do it the right way. And it's functional, it's practical, and it's just embedded into what we do. All right, so here we have some examples of some games that we play to practice counting. So this top picture, we have the kids. We have an old laptop in our classroom, and they decided that they wanted to make a movie theater. So they put the laptop in the back and set up the chairs like a movie theater, and I just went off of their lead, and I thought, hey, this is a great idea. Let me grab the cash register, and we used some cotton balls as popcorn, and they have their own little movie theater going here. We included this picture in our weekly newsletter on Friday, and the little boy at the cash register, he wasn't able to be here to tell you about this tonight, but he came back on Monday after the weekend, and he was holding the newsletter, and he said, I want to play this again. So we brought it back out, and the kids are exploring, like they're counting out the money, they're counting out the popcorn, they're exploring economics. Like they want to charge $100 for popcorn, but then they run out of money. So what are we going to do about that now? And we really encourage them to solve those problems on their own and figure out, well, let's go to the writing area and make more money, or let's create a bank, or let's charge less for the popcorn. So they have a lot of fun playing that. We've got also a picture of a spider web. We use yarn around the basket to create a spider web, put plastic spiders inside, and they're using tongs to pull the spiders out, and they're competing with another friend, and then they get to count those. And you'll see on another slide how we can sometimes use a 10 frame to keep track of that, which brings in more math skills. They also, hey, Javon, take a look at this picture right here. Look, this is you. What are you doing in this picture? Come see. What are you doing right here? What are you doing right here?
Counting my Scooby snacks.
You're counting your Scooby snacks. How many did you have?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, you sure are. You are. He saw those snacks. He loves to count his stuff. So he saw those snacks and he just started counting spontaneously. This is, perfect time for me to assess just by observing. And I snapped a picture of that real quick too. Zamora, come on over and tell us about this other game you're playing. Look at this. What are you guys playing there? I'll turn around this way though. Okay.
Maria was hiding the apples, and I tried to find the worm, and I found it the first time.
You sure did, right? So Abria hid a worm behind one of our apples. The apples have numbers on it. And Zamara, in this picture, she found it the very first time. But if she didn't find it the first time, Abria would have given her a hint, like it's in an apple that's less than 3, or it's in an apple greater than 3. What would be an apple number bigger than 3?
10, but if it wasn't 10, it would be 3.
Well, it's bigger than 3, besides 10.
6.
It could be an apple number 6, so we could try that one. Very good, Samara. Okay, so this is this next slide is about subitizing.
I was sitting down on the class and counting my finger. I was doing.
Yeah, you had 3 fingers, you're right. This slide about subitizing. Subitizing is basically recognizing a number without having to count it, to actually count it. So we use these 10 frames. We use 10 frames, and we'll put, like if we're doing flashcards, letter flashcards, they'll put a manipulative, in the 10 frame, and it causes some really great discussions where they say, oh, he has 1 more than me, or I need 3 more to have 10. And we get some really good discussions just by using the 10 frame. And as Javon was saying, he's using his fingers to count 3. We have a finger play that we do. This is our beehive. And they know that 3 bees are out of the hive, 2 bees are in the hive, and 3 and 2 make 5. So they're starting to really build on those like addition foundational skills. Also using dice to play games, and he's counting out his, he's got all the way up to 25 over here. He's counting out his jewels to go around the turtle as he rolls the dice and then counts them out. Another example of subitizing. we have these cards. You guys remember doing these? Yeah? All right, so how many is this?
1.
Yes, and we like to count one even though we don't need to. We can just look at it and know. Sometimes on calendar, we'll just all say, okay, let's count together, and we count 1, and then think it's really silly. What's this one?
2.
Yeah, good job. So we just can look at it and we know how many there are.
3.
Good.
4.
4, and this is one that looks like it's on the dice, but what about this one?
4.
How do you know it's 4?
Because it's 2 and 2.
Yeah, she sees 2 up there and 2 up there, so we can compose or decompose numbers with subitizing skills. Well, we did some of these all the way up more. I think we just did these today, Samara.
5.
Yes.
6. 5.
How many is that? How do you know it's 5?
5.
How do you know?
Because there's 2 and 3.
Yep, 2 and 3 are 5. Good job. What about this one? You're doing great. You're on a roll.
6.
It is 6, and you're right. You saw those 3 right there. 3 and 3 are 6. Good. Ooh, this was a tricky one.
6.
How did you know?
Because it's 3 and 3.
You saw 3 and 3, so you can find a pattern. 3 over here and 3 over there makes 6. So just being able to recognize those number patterns is helping Zamara to have that foundational addition. Oh, I think it's still in that. All right, Samara, tell us about this is one of my favorite games to play in the classroom because they have to do a lot of different math skills. What are we doing over here?
We're making shapes still.
We're making shapes too. What do we need to make shapes do?
We need a recipe and we need a bowl, and then we pick the right shapes that's on our recipe, and then we stir it up when we're ready and we sing the song.
We do. We have a little song we have to sing before we taste the stew. And I actually have a recipe today. I didn't include it in the slide because she just made it this week. But our recipes look like this, so they have to recognize the number. And just like you don't want a spicy stew, we don't want a stew that's too squarey or too circly, so we have to follow the recipe. But Zamara, she said, can I make my own recipe? I'm like, sure, let's grab a piece of paper. And so Zamara made her own recipe for the stew that she wanted, since the other recipes weren't exactly what she wanted. What does your recipe say?
It says we need 3 of the
Hexagons.
hexagons, and we need 4 of the
Trapezoids.
trapezoids and 5 squares.
Awesome, and it was a delicious stew. I can speak for myself on that one.
And then also in our classrooms, we build shapes using different materials. So whether we're using marshmallows and toothpicks or rubber bands on our geo boards or craft sticks. Eli, you want to come and talk about your shapes? Eli is going to come and talk about the shapes that he built with his craft sticks. Here, I can come over here. Eli, what shapes did you make with your craft sticks?
Triangle.
You made a triangle. Did you remember any of the other shapes that you made with your craft sticks?
Diamond.
And a diamond? Oh, good job. Thank you. And then some other math skills that we do in our classes is measuring and graphing. So for measuring, we use standard units of measurement like rulers, and we also use non-standard units of measurement. So here we have a student using little square blocks to measure a pumpkin. And then here we have some friends using rulers, going around the room on a measurement hunt, measuring different things that they can find. And for graphing, we have Miss Lily, who's going to tell us about a graph that we recently made. All right, Lily, what were you graphing in this picture?
Bear.
You were graphing bears. Do you remember which color bear had the most?
Red.
Red. And in this graph, what were we collecting our data on? What were we graphing in that picture?
Animal.
Animals, and it says, who was your favorite book character? And we had Little Critter, Pete the cat, and who's that?
Clifford.
And Clifford. Do you remember which was your favorite book character? Who did you vote for?
Little Critter.
You voted for Little Critter, and do you remember, or can you look on our graph and tell us which book character had the most votes?
Pete the cat.
Pete the cat did have the most votes. Thank you, Lily. And to conclude our presentation, we have a couple of quotes that emphasize the learning through play, like what our kids do. The first one is from Fred Rogers. Play is often talked about as if it were a relief from serious learning, but for children, play is serious learning, and play is really the work of childhood.
And Ralph Waldo Emerson says, it is a happy talent to know how to play. And Ms. Valerie and I can attest that this play is a skill, and it's a skill that we're starting to see some of our students losing. And it's such a wonderful thing that we are able to put games and play back into our kids' lives and help them learn how their play is important and valuable. It's what brings them to a greater knowledge and greater achievement. Thank you so much for letting us share a little window into our day.
And I also wanted to, on behalf of me and Miss Linda and our wonderful teacher assistants, a wonderful round of applause for our families who brought their children up here to help us with our presentation this evening. Thank you very much, our family.
I have a question for the families. Do they come home and teach you how to play? Do you come home and they're like, I gotta show you. Yeah, the play never ends. That's good. Well, thank you guys so much for coming. Okay, moving on to 1.06, I'd like to report that the Board of Education met in closed session on March 11, 2021 for the purpose of discussion of personnel agenda items. Moving on to 1.07, it is time for our public comments. We didn't have anything turned in. All right. Thank you very much. Moving on to 2.01, we have our president's report. Tonight, we are excited to announce the Ritenour School District's award recipients for the 2020-2021 school year. Christina Melly, an English language arts teacher at Ritenour High School and a Ritenour graduate, by the way, is the district's 2021 Diamond Circle Teacher of the Year. Erica Hill is Ritenour's lead nurse and Wyland Elementary's nurse, and she is the 2020-21 Diamond Circle Employee of the Year. Dr. Michael Nobile is an instructional coach and is this year's Make a Difference Award honoree. And Sydney Tomoso, a second grade teacher at Kratz Elementary, is the district's first class teacher, honoring a teacher for excellence in their first or second year of teaching. Dr. Kilbride hosted an online Zoom meeting with all of our honorees on March 23rd to make the official announcement, which by the way, I watched, and it was pretty funny how you snuck that in there on them. We will recognize our award recipients at our virtual honor center on Thursday, April 29th. The event will be held on Zoom and begin at 6 p.m. And I'd like to say congratulations to all on this well-deserved honor. If we could give them a round of applause. Thank you all, especially in this year. Moving on to 2.02, Dr. Kilburn.
Thank you, Ms. Lonis. So board members, Ms. Lonis said that, pulled a little surprise on the employees of the year. The way that we were able to get them into the Zoom meeting is we let them know that we needed their input on some additional curriculum mapping work. And so they were prepared to talk curriculum maps and priority standards, and they ended up being recognized as the teachers and employees of the year. It was fun. So a couple of points for my superintendent's report. The first piece of my superintendent's report, I'm proud to share that we recently learned that one of our outstanding high school students, who's a senior, will be recognized by the Special School District later this spring with the Rosemary Zander Award. It's the highest honor given to students who receive services through Special School District. for outstanding academics and personal achievement, as well as for making a positive impact on others. We'll look forward to sharing more news about this student and allowing you to meet this student in person later this spring. Board members, I'd like to take a moment to recognize our new Director of Secondary Education, who is here with us tonight. Dr. Bruce Green is attending the meeting with us tonight. Let's give Dr. Green a welcome round of applause. Dr. Green spent Monday in the district of this week, attended a DALT meeting, and spent some time with me and as well with Dr. Stewart to start the transition process and to become aware of roles, routines, and expectations. So thanks to Dr. Green for taking time out of his very busy schedule to be here with us to start building relationships. Very confident that Dr. Green is going to hit the ground running and help us get to that higher level of achievement at the secondary level that our students deserve. Would like to share with the board that we're expecting to have our new board member orientation scheduled for next week at 6 p.m. At this point, there are two items that we'd like to share with you. In addition to the new board member orientation, there are still details that are being worked out. I look forward to getting your feedback and sharing details tomorrow. We're scheduled to have a recommendation around a surveillance package. You're going to receive a report tonight from the operations department around a Proposition S surveillance package that would provide additional cameras in our buildings. And we hope to also provide a Husky Support Center update to you. Construction is going quite well. There have been a couple of unforeseen conditions that the operations team has had to work around. And so we just want to provide an update to you on the status of that. I'll be sharing information tomorrow about the new board member orientation for our new incoming board member, Vanessa Pimblott, and that'll be in the Friday memo tomorrow. The last thing I'd like to share as a part of my superintendent's update is I'd like to recognize a person who's a member of the district academic leadership team who does a great job of recognizing others for their excellence, but does not like any attention to be directed towards her for her outstanding work. Today, Assistant Superintendent Ms. Julie Hahn was awarded by NCADA, the National Council for Alcohol and Drug Abuse, with the Champion in Education Award. This is a statewide award for excellence in education. So I'd ask that we give Ms. Hahn a standing ovation for her leadership.
That's just what she wants.
Yeah.
No, it's all about education.
So you're championing alcohol.
So congratulations to Julie and thanks to her for her leadership in this district around all things social, emotional, and support of students. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Kilbride. Moving on to 2.03, I'll still leave it to you for our LAC.
Thanks, Ms. Lones. So board members, we're going to have a LAC meeting. It's going to be virtual and it's next Friday. It's a week from tomorrow. Things are quite busy in Jefferson City right now, and I just want to share a couple of updates on some legislation that's making its way through the House. We know that there are 5 weeks left in the session, with the session ending on the 14th of May. And really what's happening is some of the bills have stalled just a bit, and the expectation is there's going to be a sprint to the finish in the final weeks of the session. Senate Bill 55 is legislation that we've kept our eyes on from the very beginning of session in January. From the very beginning of the year, Senate Bill 55 was an omnibus bill, which means it's a number of different topics, or it's a number of different items that are attached to one bill. And as an omnibus bill makes its way through the legislature, when legislators see something that has a lot of momentum, there are a number of additional amendments and additional language that gets attached to it. Topics such as charter school expansion, vouchers, the accreditation system, significant attention is on those items. And there's been a lot of progress made the last couple of years. And so when legislators see there's something that's likely to pass, language and amendment gets attached to that. So there's some concerning language that's just been attached to Senate Bill 55, and it includes virtual instruction in public schools. There's been some recent language added to Senate Bill 55, which would outlaw the ability of traditional public schools to offer any virtual learning. So Ritenour Virtual Academy or virtual options at Ritenour High School, should Senate Bill 55 pass with this new language, that would prevent us from offering virtual options in our school. If you remember, we've got 42% of all students in the district, 2,770 to be exact, that had been learning virtually this year. Should this bill pass, that would prevent us from offering virtual options at all in the future. This does not include MOCAP. MOCAP is through the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, and they are virtual offerings. This language would not include MOCAP, and so that would be the only option for virtual instruction that students and families who are seeking it, that they would have. So very concerning language. Our planning, as you'll see tonight, around our virtual learning for next year is in high gear. This is something we're monitoring closely, and we'll continue to act in the best interest of students, because we do believe that high quality virtual offerings are something that some families in this community desire. And I do believe it's in our best interest, and it's our responsibility to provide that choice.
Chris, is the same bill that if that were to go through, we'd have to pay out of our funds for the kids to go to virtual learning?
Yeah, so right now through MOCAP, we do have to do that up to our student adequacy target, which is $6,300. There is a provision in this bill potentially also that would cause us to be on the hook for other options as well. Another bill that is House Bill 248, you may have received some recent notifications around this House bill. This is something that has burst on the scene, and it's involving assessments and revenue. House Bill 248 has been filed by a representative from Grain Valley, Missouri, which is on the Kansas City side. It caps the growth in residential property at CPI, or the Consumer Price Index, which is the rate of inflation. The rate of inflation on a yearly basis hovers around 2%. So what House Bill 248 would do is, even if the value of residential property increases, you'll see in Mr. Lindhorst's presentation today, the assumptions that we're operating with right now, we're expecting over a 13% increase in the value of residential property. Should House Bill 248 pass, it caps the increase at CPI at 2%. It would take us 7 years to capture the increases in revenue from the increases in valuation of residential property, which is very concerning. In addition, there's a one-time 20% cut to the assessed valuation of residential property. So should that pass, that would have the potential to impact our residential tax effort by 20%. The cost to educate a student in the Ritenour School District is about $10,800 a year. About half of that comes from local effort. A big portion of that is residential, the residential side of the house. Should there be a one-time 20% cut, or if the valuation increase is capped at CPI, that would impact our functioning here in the district. So House Bill 248 is something that we're keeping a close eye on. And then there's House Bill 349. Board members, you heard about House Bill 349 through the Region 7 session that Melissa Randall led. This is the voucher bill that was sponsored by Representative Krista Finelli. This is something also that's receiving significant traction. This is a bill that is very likely to pass. So there's a strong likelihood also that there could be other harmful educational language that gets attached to House Bill 349, which is essentially a tax credit for families that would make choices that don't involve a traditional public school. I'll be meeting with Representative Doug Clemens tomorrow to share feedback, my perspective on these harmful bills that are moving through the legislature. If you have thoughts or questions, I expect to be with Representative Clemens midday tomorrow. I'd be happy to pass along your questions or concerns as well. And again, to close, the LAC report had our municipal elections this week. There has been some changes in our locally elected officials and the number of our municipalities. So we look forward to continuing to work with all of our municipalities and all of our elected officials in the best interest of Ritenour kids. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Moving on to 2.04, we have our MSBA NSBA report with Dr. Thomas.
Well, welcome. We're currently, I know it doesn't look like it, but we're currently at the NSBA conference. So today, Friday and Saturday. Very informative few days here. A lot of sessions, general sessions to join. Breakout sessions that we can all learn from. So welcome to that. I think everybody's enjoying that. We'll probably go out to dinner later on, virtually, of course, and enjoy each other's company. And maybe next year we can do that as a group again. It's always good to go out and see your colleagues, all 8,000 or 9,000 of them there, and hear what's going on around the country and all that. I hope everybody has signed up that can, even if you can only catch a few sessions at the end of the day after your work day, it's well worth it. And of course, they'll have everything on file on their website so that you can review everything there in the upcoming months. So welcome to NSBA's conference. I hope you all enjoy it. As far as what's going on locally, we have our board report. And if we can, Mr. Smith, roll that great board film.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Missouri School Boards Association's board report for the month of April. We thank you for the opportunity to share some news and information during a few minutes of your board meeting. We begin with a look at the American Rescue Plan. That federal law will provide nearly $2 billion in COVID-19 relief money to Missouri, 90% of which will be available directly to Missouri school districts through the Title I formula. Department of Elementary and Secondary Education Deputy Commissioner Dr. Carrie Monzis tells us the money can be used for a wide range of purposes.
Lots of different things to support students, whether it's addressing learning issues from time missed related to COVID, supporting schools in the technology areas, professional development for staff, mental health support for students and staff. Quite a wide range of supporting areas that schools can utilize. And essentially it's any area that's in response to the COVID pandemic is fairly broad and included within these provisions.
Monzis adds there's a strong emphasis on addressing student learning loss that may have occurred this school year.
There are a wide range of responses a district may have for learning loss. Summer school is a perfect example. Many of our schools already have summer school programs to the extent we can expand and involve more students, not only in this coming summer, but potentially the following summers. There is that possibility. There's extra learning time potentially during the regular school year that could be supported with this. So again, it's a district tailored need for that. And I will mention also that this latest round of relief does include a 20% requirement or reserve for each district to apply to learning loss activities.
School districts also can use the money for Wi-Fi hotspots and devices for students without internet connections for remote learning. Funds under the American Rescue Act will be available through the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, or ESSER. The lack of internet access for many students and families continues to be an issue in Missouri. A bill before the Missouri legislature would require the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education to issue an annual report on the number of students throughout the state without adequate internet access at home. A school board member from the Mountain View Birch Tree School District in southern Missouri, Shelley Mantell, testified before the House Elementary and Secondary Education Committee on the bill, and she said internet access is a serious issue in her part of the state.
What I'd really like is that internet is a utility. We have lots of students in our, not lots, but we have students in our district that don't have running water, don't have electricity for various reasons, but most of them have running water and electricity, which is imperative to a healthy lifestyle. So internet now is that third utility. If we don't have access to internet, we can't educate our children.
Mantell is an occupational therapist who works with students in 9 school districts in southern Missouri. She also serves as a member of the MSBA Board of Directors. If you were elected to your school board for the first time this month, welcome to school board service. Missouri law requires all school board members to receive 18.5 hours of training within their first 12 months of service. MSBA's CBM Essential Board Member Training fulfills this requirement and provides the foundation for becoming an effective board member. The training is free for all new board members. Check the MSBA website for a schedule of the in-person training opportunities along with registration information. Make plans now to attend MSBA's Igniting Great Ideas Summit, June 18th through 19th in Springfield. It's a great opportunity to participate in valuable leadership sessions and to connect with your colleagues from school districts throughout the state. Also, be sure your board is represented at the June Delegate Assembly to be held in conjunction with the Great Ideas Summit. Delegates will be electing state officers for the coming year at that meeting. The nominating committee is proposing a slate of officers for consideration, including a candidate for president-elect and a candidate for vice president. Video interviews with the candidates are posted on the MSBA website. And if your school district is interested in making a presentation at the 2021 MSBA Annual Conference this fall, you can now submit your proposal. The request for a presentation form is available on the MSBA website. The deadline for submitting your proposal is May 14th. The 2021 Annual Conference is set for November 4th through 7th in Kansas City. That's it for this edition of the MSBA Board Report. Thanks for allowing us to have some time at your board meeting, and so long from Columbia.
And with that comes the usual, keep an eye out on emails, especially the Jefferson City reports from both the MSBA and Dr. Kilbride. He did an excellent job summarizing all the active bills that we got in our Friday or weekend report. Told us a lot about that. We know there's a lot going on in Jefferson City, so feel free and feel an urgency to let our representatives know, and the other representatives know as well, what we need in education and surely what we don't need. And Madam President, that concludes my report.
All right, moving on to 2.05, we have our special school district report with Dr. Alvin Wilson.
Hi, good evening. I have Robbie here to give the presentation for our PAC that we have here in Ritenour.
Good evening. So I have hit the ground running. And I know that we're not looking to do this for next school year, but there's a lot of things that need to be put together before we can do that. So I have, over the last couple weeks, had meetings with Dee Burns as well as with Julie Hahn on how we can, what we envision our path to look like, how we can proceed, and what we want to do. So here's a little bit of what we've come together so far. So for meeting information, I sat down, I looked at all the different PTO meetings, I looked at all the different board meetings, I looked at all the different district PTO meetings, and then I got a headache. So I decided on the fourth Monday of every month will be our PAC meeting. It will be from 6 p.m. till 7:30. And working with Julie Hahn, we decided with the Ritenour Husky Academy at 9229 Lackland Road. So one of the things that we want to be able to do is make this meeting open to all parents with children that are in special school district. So some of that means, what do I do with my other kids? What do I do? How do I get to go? So we are, with Julie's help, we are working on getting some volunteers from the high school to help offer some babysitting services, as well as possibly some tutoring if they need help with homework, things like that, to offer so that there's a place for the other students to go and things that they can do. So what does an agenda look like? Well, for an hour and a half, and that's even short for what is recommended. But from like 6 till 6:30, we wanted to be able to do a meet and greet, build that community among SSD's parents. Build that so that they can see each other, they can build and have that rapport, that they know they're not in this alone. As a parent of a child in special school district, it becomes very overwhelming. It becomes very, you're fighting an uphill battle, you're all by yourself. One of the phrases that is used a lot, and I will be honest, it makes my skin crawl, is a SSD student or my special school district student. First of all, that student is a child. They are not and should not be labeled as an SSD student. They're a child that receives services from special school district. And when we label people or students that way, it takes effect not only on that student, but it takes effect on that parent, that we don't fit in with all the other groups, all the other places. So one of the things I want to be sure that we're doing is we're getting rid of that label, and that they're all children, they're all kids, they just receive additional services. And if we get real down to it and be honest, guess what? We all need additional services at other times, whether it's some education, whether it's my needs are different, because Dee Burns and I were talking today, my needs on Monday are different than my needs on Friday. So, we all have special needs. Then from 6:30 to 6:45, we're going to kind of do a Ritenour School District or an SSD report that just tells some of the things that are going on in the district, some of the things that are going on in a special school district, some of the legislative things that are going on that parents don't know about, things like that. Then from 6:45 till 7:15, I have worked with a lady by the name of Deb from Special School District, and we're going to have, whether you want to call it an education piece, a training, but we're going to have different things like charting the life course, preparing and getting the most out of an IEP, talking about summer programs. The SSD is glad to send their education department over to help lead those things with us. If they can't be there in person, we will have videos that we can show and then talk about those. And then ending it from around 7:15 to 7:30 with some questions and answers. The first meeting is what I handed out to everybody just a few minutes ago, is going to be on Monday, September the 27th. With school starting in August, there's too much going on at the first part of August. We wanted to be sure we got this out, so we're going to have that in September. We are asking that Dr. Kilbride, I've already talked to Michelle, and she put it on your calendar, sorry. But we've asked him, or Julie Hahn has agreed to be there. Any other assistant superintendent that would like to be there, we would encourage you to be there. Any board members that are available to be there, we're asking that you would be there. We're going to work with, Dee Burns is going to help me with getting a hold of the special school district superintendent, area coordinators, area directors, and have all of them there. That first meeting is going to be a get to know you kind of thing. There's a lot of people and a lot of parents in special school district that don't know where to go. They don't know where their chain of command is. They don't know, if I'm not getting anywhere with my teacher, who do I talk to next? So we want to get those resources in their hands right from the very beginning and give you that opportunity to meet and greet with them. So, and I talked about the education topics already. So, but I was going to try to put that in there, but Deb and I didn't talk to it today. So how are we getting the word out? That's the question. That's the big part of, if we're going to make this work, we have to get that information out into the parents. So there has already been a Facebook page created that is getting ready to be published. I'm getting it over to Michelle Mueller and Doug Gray's office to kind of give me the last bit of okays on it to get that out and going. I'm going to be working with the district PTOs in our district PTO meeting so that they can get that information to their schools through PTO. It's going out in the back to school packets. So we're working with Doug Gray's office to be sure that a flyer is being sent out. It's going to go out to every parent in the district to start with. And then we're going to be able to do some text blasts and things like that to parents in special school district. There is a newsletter that Dee Burns and I have talked about today that we're going to be sure that it's put out in that. There's going to be a station at the Black and Orange Day and the Back to School Bash that talks about it. I'm going to ask, with Dr. Kilbride's permission, that one of his principal meetings, that if I can swing in for a few minutes just to talk with the principals about it so that they can get that information out there, because we're excited about it. I know with talking with Julie and Dee, we are excited and see that this could be a very beneficial thing to the district and to our students. Any questions? Yes, ma'am. Haven't yet, but I will follow up with Doug's office and help with that. That'd be a good thing, wouldn't it? It would be a great thing, and Julie and I have already talked about that. Where's our next option to go?
Any other questions? Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eden. Thank you, Dr. Opton. All right, so let's go ahead and move into our business items. We have our 3.01, which is our teacher agreement for working conditions with Dr. Ritenour.
Good evening, school board members. If you can hear me okay, we're going to share the microphone tonight. Also want to recognize that Ivla music teacher and RNEA team leader Beth Davey is joining me tonight for the presentation. We are happy to be here to seek your approval for the teacher working conditions and salary agreement tonight.
So we'll begin by introducing the members of our team. So I'm joined here this evening by fellow Ivla staff member Adam Barnstead, who served as part of our RNEA delegation. Joining us virtually this evening, hey folks, we have Christina Melly from Ritenour High School, Jamie Flaherty from Pratt Elementary, and Shanae McCoy, who is with currently our Ritenour Virtual Academy.
And I would also like to recognize and ask them to stand, as well as the RNEA members for recognition that are here tonight. Dr. Patricia Clausen, Amanda Conley, Khalil Ewing, and Dwight Lindhorst. We want to thank them for their efforts and their collaboration on this effort that we're going to present to the board tonight. Thank you. We first want to describe our process. We started with interest-based bargaining training for the team, and that was our focus throughout our meetings to collaborate and really express our shared interest and work together to address the interests of both groups.
And I do want to reassure as we speak through this agreement and proposal this evening that indeed it was a collegial, positive, and student and community-centered process. It was an honor to be able to collaborate as a team in the room, and I repeatedly left those meetings reassured of the district's holistic commitment to truly serving every student every day. Okay, so to speak through some of the details surrounding the proposal for the agreement concerning working conditions, first wanted to give you an update surrounding inclusive language. Throughout the contract, we did successfully collaborate to change some of that language away from gendered language first. So they, their, and theirs, replacing she, her, and he and his. And that is reflected throughout the contract. Also included in the non-discrimination statement centered within the contract is specificity surrounding non-discrimination against a non-discrimination for individuals with gender identity and sexual orientation. All of this is to reflect the district's recent work toward the equity statement and to bring some alignment in with that. But truly, from a teacher perspective, it's also reflective of our desire to make sure that we are inclusive in our classrooms.
We also had quite a bit of discussion about the value of self-directed teacher plan time and the positive impact it has on our students when teachers are well planned and can provide the best instruction possible. We also wanted to align with MSIP 6, which requires school districts to look at how are we defining self-directed plan time. So we worked collaboratively on that, and so there is language that identifies 150 minutes of self-directed plan time for each 5-day week for our teachers.
And then we had an interesting and collaborative discussion surrounding building pathways for teacher leadership. We know from a teacher perspective, when we speak with our RNAA members and with teachers who may seek opportunities in other districts, that to build leadership and to build capacity is an absolute need. And so while the language is left intentionally vague in the contract that we all have had access to, there is going to be moving forward a collaboration between the Ritenour NEA and our district PD committee to establish a menu of options for our educators and counselors to move through leadership capacity training and to have assigned leadership pathways. That's an exciting update for us.
So the salary key points that we want to point out tonight, which we're seeking your approval for, really is continuing with the index schedule with a starting salary of $43,120 for the beginning teacher with the bachelor's degree. That's step one. And this is an overall increase of 4.32% across the salary schedule. We believe this will keep the salary schedule competitive in the region and allow us to attract and retain highest quality educators for our students.
Absolutely. Included within that also is the built-in mechanism that all teachers eligible for a step will advance one step for the coming school year. This is a one-year agreement that we are proposing to this evening. Also, you will notice in your copy of the contract a rather complex formula put in place surrounding compensation for coverage of classes when a substitute is not available. That formula is really put in place as a mechanism to automatically update the per hour compensation for teachers who are covering other classes, and will continue to update anytime the district should move to increase the daily sub-rate pay.
Also, we wanted to make sure that we were competitive with the state average and regionally for teachers and counselors who are nationally board certified. The current rate is $1,000 additional compensation provided annually. We would like to increase that to $3,000, which is the average in the region, and some go as high as $5,000.
For continued details surrounding the compensation efforts that were put in toward this agreement, we did have a detailed discussion surrounding our current plan for sick bank payout. If you wanted to.
Sure, we definitely wanted to keep the incentive for teachers who retain their sick leave, accruing those days upon retirement, that there would be some compensation included with all of the days that they have accrued over their time in the district. But we also wanted to keep us competitive and provide an incentive to notify the district earlier. Traditionally, we get notification sometimes in May, sometimes as late as early June. And we really wanted to provide an incentive so that we can be competitive in the peak time of hiring new staff members, which is really January, February. So we provided some language to help us with that.
So as you see on the display bullets, there is specific language for how that money can be distributed or protected for teachers when they announce their retirement. So before January 5th, by January 15th, rather, up to $9,000 or the full amount that they are eligible for. By January 31st, it is $8,500 or $500 less than their fully eligible amount. And then after that January 31st date, it reduces to $8,000 or $1,000 less than their fully eligible amount. From a teacher perspective, early announcement means that up to $1,000 is protected. And this is, we believe also as an RNEA, that this also is a win for the district to make sure that we continue to recruit the highest quality teachers early for the sake of building stability and success for our students. I also want to look at the bottom of this, Article 5, Item 2. So Article 5, Item 2, as you will note in the contract that we are proposing to this evening, is the language that surrounds teachers' use of personal leave. And so, knowing that this is an interest, particularly of the board and of Ritenour administration, and also knowing that this has been a year in many aspects surrounding the concepts of personal leave, with just the myriad of complexities of this pandemic. The Ritenour NEA, we are open to, and we have built in language to open that language again for bargaining in the 2022-2023 salary agreement. So again, that will be open again next spring per the language that we built in.
Looking at the duration of the agreement, the working conditions language is proposed to be agreed upon for the next 3 years, with the compensation as a 1 year.
Mm-hmm. And again, that 1 year compensation agreement, when we come back to the table next spring, to again focus on that Article 5, Section 2 as part of the overall conversation surrounding salary and compensation. I also do want to note, again, in the process of collegiality, as we were brainstorming the best options for our students in our community, we had an opportunity as a Ritenour NEA to reflect on some of the data that was provided to us surrounding teacher and staff absences. While I know as a teacher, just like every student in my classroom comes with an individual story and individual needs, so do all teachers and staff in the district. However, I do also want to mention that the Ritenour NEA is committed to making sure that we are lowering our staff absences after reviewing that data in a collaborative manner. All right. So a little bit of an update surrounding ratification. So from the end of the Ritenour NEA, I am very pleased to announce that RNEA passed ratification with an overwhelming 97.4% of yes votes. This is the largest percentage and majority that we've seen in the past several years. And as we went through the process of explaining the proposed contract to members, I do also want to share anecdotally with our board that there was a great deal of positive feedback, and I believe opportunities for building trust and building a community health perspective as we move forward out of this pandemic. So thank you for hearing that portion, and also again want to reiterate that there is a opportunity to continue to build relationships because of that 97.4% application.
As I said at the beginning of the presentation, this was a very collaborative effort between the two teams. We definitely had the same goals and different ideas of how to reach the goals, and we worked together to come to the best solutions we could, really in keeping Ritenour students as a primary focus of the efforts. We respectfully asked the Ritenour Board of Education to approve the working conditions for the 3 years and compensation for 1 year as have been presented.
And with that, we would welcome any questions that you may have.
I have a couple. How many interviews on this?
We had 195 teachers vote total. That's representing about 2/3 of our membership.
And the $15 per period, can you explain it? Because I know high school, middle school have periods, but elementary doesn't. So how does that work?
It's based on about a 50-minute class period. So sometimes that's adjusted if it is, for example, a middle school block schedule, or at the elementary level, if teachers are covering for longer than that, that is adjusted. That $15 an hour was adjusted because the sub rate changed for subs this year. We wanted to show a reflection of when the sub rate changes, and you'll see language that represents that. When the general sub rate changes, so does the compensation for teachers.
But it doesn't take per hour, it's per period.
Per period, because we base that primarily on a 50-minute period, and we divide the day as roughly about 7 50-minute periods.
Okay, so next question. I know sometimes at the elementary level, there's no substitute, so instead they split the kids up and go into different. So if you have 4 classes and one teacher's not there, and there's substitute, you split all those kids into 3 different classes. So are all 3 of those teachers going to be compensated then, or?
Yes, and it's good that they're divided into thirds, because we would divide the $15 into thirds. So because the class is split into thirds, we're not covering the entire class. We would divide that 15 evenly per period among the teachers serving those students for that period, and multiply that out for the day, is how we've addressed that. And sometimes it gets, we're calculating that if it's 2 teachers, if it's 4 teachers, how, we do.
So it's $15 regardless. $15 per period.
Correct.
Regardless how many classes they take.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Seems as we go along with these meetings, year to year, they're getting smoother, they're getting more collaborative, they're getting more into the things that we need to look at. And I think the vote that you had reflects that. And, that their belief in the process, along with the belief in the outcome. I think this year, both in the language and in the monetary side of it, they came out very well. I do look forward to seeing this trend continue in the next years, in the coming years. And it seemed like it was smooth sailing. I don't know, Mike, you guys up there make it sound like it was. I sure hope it was. And we learned as we move forward, so we can smooth out whatever little ripples in the road there are, so that we can get this done even quicker and have more opportunities to serve our kids. And that's the bottom line to any of it. No matter why we're here, no matter who we are, if we're not ready and willing to serve the children of the school district, we're looking at something wrong. And I'm glad you guys kept that as your cornerstone of everything you talked about. That's very, very good to hear. I hope we can keep doing that in the future.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to say thank you to both teams, to the NEA side for your willingness to consider a multi-year. While this process certainly sounds as if it was very collaborative, and that was the feedback that I received as well. This is also a process that people prefer not to do every single year. So I'm thankful that the association was willing to consider a multi-year working condition. So thank you.
I'm also thankful that we're able to give you guys a nice raise, because the year that we worked so hard, not this last proposition, but the one before that, and then do things out of what we could really give the raise that we wanted to that we. So I'm really excited that we are able to do that.
And on behalf of the association and my negotiating team, I will echo that there's a deep gratitude as well from the teachers and staff. We all know, of course, that of all years, it's been a trying year for many of us. And any steps that we can take, either personally or collectively, take a breath, provides opportunities to take away the peace. So we are thankful as well for that part of the proposal.
Okay.
Madam President,
Yes, sir.
I'm very proud to move that we approve the teacher agreement for working conditions and the teacher salary schedule as presented this night.
You have a motion? Second. And a second. Any other questions?
We have to put the times in there that.
I'm sorry?
Year to 1 year.
It's not on my motion. We have to put the years in.
As presented.
Okay. Yep, we're good. All right. Lisa? Yep. I'll call the vote. Mr. Garden?
Yes.
Dr. Thomas?
Absolutely.
Dr. Alvin?
Yes.
Ms. Greco?
Yes.
Ms. Glover Jones? And I will vote yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you.
You all.
Dr. Latance, we'll move you on to 3.02 for our support staff.
As we just discussed, the teacher salary increase, salary schedule increase of 4.32%. I'm here to present to you the support staff salary increase, and we do work to make sure that we are equitable in our salary increases. I'm very happy to share these this recommendation with you tonight as well. A little bit about the process that goes into the support staff recommendation. We reviewed the cost of providing each support staff employee a step on their current schedule and increasing the base salary on each schedule. And we do this in comparison with St. Louis County districts to ensure that our salaries are competitive in the region for our support staff members who we know contribute to the outcomes of our students every day. So just as we talked about recruiting and retaining teachers, we work hard to do the same with our support staff members. As I like to say, we like to hire and keep you to retire, and we'd like to do the same with our support staff members. We do also consider the increase that the group got the year before. So we look at how did that help their ranking this year, and then that goes into the salary increase by group during the current year recommendation. We work towards a goal of consistent overall increases for all employee groups, teachers, staff, and administrators to be very similar or exactly like the teacher increase in this year of 4.32%. We did share the recommendations that would be coming to the board tonight with the support staff advisory committee and sought their feedback on March 24 and went through group by group and gave them an opportunity to ask us questions along the way. Tonight's recommendations provide a step for each support staff employee, just as the teacher recommendation provide a step. Where the step was possible, where there was not a step possible, for example, if our salary schedule just went to year 17, we added a step. So we're again moving towards similarities with the teacher schedules and reaching 20 to 25 steps in each schedule. Increasing the overall schedule by work group to provide a minimum, what occurred is a minimum of 4.32 across each work group. And some are more, you'll see as I share in a few minutes, more than that. Again, to help improve our standing in comparability with the county. We achieved an overall support staff schedule increase of 4.33% for this recommendation that I will share with you tonight. So looking at each group, beginning with our bus drivers, the drivers last year received a 3.7% increase. This year, the recommendation is 4.31 going into next year, but notice the range for individual drivers increase ranges from 8.6 to 13.4%. And that range, that variance in the range can be accounted for by the location on the schedule, as well as the number of hours in a work year. As those adjust, then the percentage can adjust as well. Looking at child nutrition schedules, overall increase of 4.33% for child nutrition with a range of 5.6 to 9.2%. Again, as their hours adjust year to year, it gives us the ability to give higher percentage increases. Also comparing from last year, a 3.45% across all of the child nutrition staff members. Warehouse schedule employees looking at a 4.31%, and you'll see a difference, a range from 3.7 to 4.2 for those employees. And again, that change is based on their location in the schedule. As you look further into the information that was shared with you, depending upon the employee's placement on the schedule, impacts their percentage of increase. Custodial staff, Group A and Group B, remember we created those groups going into this year, so we didn't have comparisons last year for those groups. Looking at it overall for the custodial staff, a 4.31% increase compared to 3.75 last year. And that range is from 4.0 to 5.3% increase. And as you can see in the information shared with you, this is going to help us maintain so that we are competitive among our support staff groups. Our maintenance staff getting an increase of 4.33, and again, the range from 4.2 to 5.3 in that work group. Nurses last year received an increase of 8.1%, really to increase their our competitive salaries with the region, which was, in my opinion, very wise going into the pandemic. That really helped us retain and then when we needed to attract nurses to the district this year, looking at a 4.32% and still maintaining very competitive salaries for our nurses with a range of 3.6 to 4.6%. Office professional staff looking at an overall increase of 4.33%. And again, that range from 3.1 to 5.8 across all of the three groups of office professionals. Early Childhood Center teachers assistants, again, last year a 3.6%, this year 4.33%, and that range varies quite a bit from 4.9% up to 12.7% for those employee groups. Adult education, an overall increase of 4.32%. Again, we worked very hard to be consistent so that our increases were comparable, not just among the support staff, but also to the teacher salaries. And that range was 4.2% to 4.5%. overall, we reached, as I stated at the beginning, we reached an increase across all of the support staff schedules of 4.33%. This also does include the off-schedule group that I did not mention in a previous slide. They're at 4.32% as well. And our off-schedule staff members are those staff members that don't fit into any of those work groups. I'm open to any questions the board may have.
I don't have any questions, but I would like to say that Mike did a great job. I sit on that committee and the support staff. We did a good job of explaining, reminding people.
Thank you.
And we didn't have the best turnout, but we did reach out to everyone, and we did ask the questions to see, make sure that there weren't anything out there that wasn't understood. I just, kudos to you for this great job.
Thank you. I'm
Sometimes
seeking.
it's hard enough understanding the percentages and the numbers and everything and how that reflects on one person's job. But then to have to explain it to a whole group, as each individual looks at that, see how it's going to affect them. I think you've done a very good job of calculating everything and keeping everything within balance. And I'm sure you went through a few calculators to get this all done. And I really appreciate all the hard work you put into making this all happen for our staff. It's just not, as we all know, it's not just the teachers that teach our children. It's everyone they come in contact with, from the bus driver in the morning to the person helping them back on the bus in the afternoon. Every person. And I think that's a good comment on how we teach our kids from the moment they're with us to the moment they're with us. And to make our support staff, our all scheduled staff, and everyone, make them included in all this, make sure that they get the way they deserve. That's a good thing. Really appreciate all the work you did, Mike.
Thank you. I also want to thank Dwight Ritenour. To be honest, he was an extremely helpful thought partner through this, and double checking, double, triple, quadruple checking calculations, and making sure that we're attending to every staff member in that too. So I want to make sure I thank Dwight in the process.
It's just like the teacher group talked about how they feel that it was very collaborative and well respected for their position. That was brought up too. And the support staff felt very appreciative and felt like they are respected for what they do. And, this is what they do.
Thank you. I really appreciate that feedback. That's important to me. Actually, Mike Smith and I talk about that quite a bit. It's a goal of ours.
Yeah, we need
Second. I have a motion and a second. Any other questions? I'll call the vote. Mr. Garden?
Yes.
Dr. Thomas?
Yes.
Dr. Alvin?
Yes.
Ms. Greco?
Yes.
Ms. Glover Jones?
Yes.
And I will vote yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dr. LaChance, thank you very much for all your work with everything. It's just, it's amazing to think that it's only been 1 year.
1 year. It's been a very rewarding 1 year. I'll say that, very rewarding. Thank you guys for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on to 3.03. I'll turn this over to you.
All right, thank you very much. I would like to report our election results for the election of April 6th, 2021 for our Board of Education directors. We had 2 seats open and we had 2 candidates file. And so we have received the unofficial election results from the county. We will get the certified results within the next month or so and accept them at a future meeting. But our unofficial election results tallied to Lisa Glover Jones, 1,774 votes, and Vanessa Pimblott, 1,316 votes. So I'm asking the board to accept the unofficial election results provided by St. Louis County.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. I'll call the vote. Mr. Garden?
Yes.
Dr. Thomas?
Yes.
Dr. Alvin?
Yes.
Ms. Greco?
Yes.
Ms. Glover Jones? And I will vote
The well-fought race.
yes.
Two best candidates came out on top once again.
All right.
Congratulations, Lisa. Congratulations.
On more things than just one. Okay, so I can move on, right? Okay, so moving on, we have our 3.04, and I'll turn that over to Dr. Philbrook. I sure can. You just want the microphone or you want the stand?
I'll take this.
Okay, you grab it.
So board members, we're going to recognize 3.04, recognize Kayla Baker. So I'll make my way over to Kayla. Sure. So board members, tonight we officially recognize and thank outgoing Board of Ed student representative Kayla Baker. This is the first time in the 154-year history of the district that we've had a student representative, and I want to thank you, board members, for your willingness to put new processes in place and help us to make sure that student voice is a part of the equation in our decision making. Kayla was selected as our first ever student representative and formally took the oath of office on January 9, 2020. It's not been the easiest term for Kayla due to the pandemic. She's kept her focus on her studies, but she served with distinction and with class, despite all of the uncertainty and the fact that we met virtually during a portion of her term as a student representative. We're also very excited to celebrate Kayla for being one of only 6 seniors from throughout the state of Missouri to receive the Dr. Jack Holly Scholarship from the Missouri United School Insurance Council. So that's our insurance company. Kayla received a $2,000 scholarship towards her college studies, and we know that that money will be well spent. It was a very competitive scholarship, received more than 200 applicants. Kayla was one of 6 from across the state that received the scholarship. Kayla, we're very proud of you. We thank you for your service to students, staff, and to this community. You've been an outstanding addition to the Board of Education. I'm thankful to have you as a thought partner. Thank you for sharing student perspectives and your loyal service to the Ritenour School District. Board members and all in attendance, I'd ask that we give Kayla a standing ovation for her service. Thank you. We have a plaque that I'd like to give to Kayla. And the plaque reads, in appreciation for your loyal and dedicated service to the students, employees in this community, the Ritenour School District proudly recognizes Kayla Ann Baker, student representative to the Ritenour Board of Education, 2020-2021. Congratulations. Thank you, Kayla. It's up to you.
I mean, just for the future, you know.
Yeah, if you're okay with it. See right there.
That's what she was.
That was weird.
One more opportunity for Kayla. While the mic is here, you can share a little bit about your plans for next year if you choose.
I have no idea so far. I just got decisions back. I am waitlisted at Columbia, but I did get into Dartmouth, and I also got a pretty nice deal from SLU. So I'm kind of in limbo right now. I'm going to visit and see where they take me. But regardless, I'm super excited. Both schools are amazing, and I'm definitely going to teaching, so this is not the last that you'll see of me. Probably see my application this summer. Yeah. Yeah, I'm hoping to major in theater or English. We'll see. But yeah, that's pretty much all I've got. I hope to see you all soon.
How about telling us what you got out of being on board?
Wow. I think any ounce of professionalism that I have now, definitely I got from this group. I was so anxious coming in. It's very intimidating, such a great group of people. So learning to speak out a lot more. I definitely learned that from coming here. And also, there are so many underlying things that happen in the district that I would have had no idea about. So thank you for bringing me in here and kind of exposing me to that so that I can have more of an understanding in the future.
Do you have any more warnings for that?
Better watch out. No, but really, I'm gonna say contact information and stuff like that. Yeah, thank you guys so much for this opportunity. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you all again soon.
So Kayla, I'd like to also say to you that you gave us a great learning experience too. So being able to take a moment and always ask, well, what are your points? And there were several meetings that we had, and you, whether they were like off of normal business meetings and everything, but you gave us different perspectives, the student perspective. So you did a very good job at your job. And so I thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. I really do. Thank you.
So board members, this will be Kayla's last meeting. She's transitioning off of the board. Thank you. And Janaya is going to be flying solo now. So Janaya, I took a meeting with Janaya this morning at 7:30 a.m. before her school day started. Appreciate Janaya's connection to school, her commitment to the board. Very confident that Janaya will carry the torch forward and continue to be a voice for students. Thank you.
All right, passing it back this way. All right, so now we're going to move on to 3.05, and I will once again turn it over to Ms. Holder.
Okay, so I will administrate the oath of office to our new elected Board of Education members. I'm going to do them one at a time just to observe social distancing practices. So I'll start with Ms. Lisa Glover-Jones. Ms. Kimball, if you want to have a seat over here, I'll work my way around over here after I'm done with Ms. Glover-Jones. Pardon me? Yeah, I was going to do one at a time.
And then she's going to do.
Yeah, I'll do one at a time and just, well, if you're over here. Okay. All right. So, and then we have to give Michelle a good, work this out.
Logistics.
It's
yeah,
really
hang
all
on,
about the
watch out.
picture.
All right, welcome.
Thank you.
Glad you could make it tonight.
Yeah. So good. I'll have to scoot out early because my husband's like, okay, I will read the oath. Back to me. Okay, I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States.
I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
And the Constitution of the State of Missouri.
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
And that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties.
that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties
Of school director in and for Ritenour School District.
of school director in and for Ritenour School District,
County of St. Louis, State of Missouri.
County of St. Louis, State of Missouri,
To the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability,
According to law, so help me God.
according to law, so help me God.
Congratulations. I will read the oath and you can repeat after me. Okay. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States.
I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
And the Constitution of the State of Missouri.
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
And that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties
of school director in and for Ritenour School District,
of school director in and for Ritenour School District,
County of St. Louis, State of Missouri,
County of St. Louis, State of Missouri,
to the best of my ability according to law.
to the best of my ability according to law.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Wow.
Congratulations, and thank you guys both for your continued service and your new service. You got 6 other partners. Let us know what you need.
Okay.
All right, still on to you.
Yes. All right. So at this time, I will administer the election for the board president. So the process is I will call for nominations. A second is not required. So if anybody has a nomination for board president,
I'd like to nominate Dr. Stacy Alden Wilson.
any other nominations? Okay,
Move we close nomination.
thank you. And I do need
A second.
I do need a second.
Second.
Okay, and then I will call the vote. Ms. Glover Jones? Yes. Ms. Delbrecca?
Yes.
Dr. Alvin Wilson?
Yes.
Ms. Lonis?
Yes.
Ms. Enrique Tonga? Dr. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Garden? 7-0. Now I will call. That was the close nomination.
Yeah.
Now I will call for the vote on the candidate. The candidate is Dr.
I think we do this every time.
The candidate is Dr. Stacy Alvin Wilson, and I will call for the vote. I'll start with you, Dr. Thomas.
There you go. Absolutely.
Okay, Mr. Garden? Ms. Enrique, okay. Ms.
Yes.
Lennox? Dr. Alvin Wilson?
Yes.
All right. Ms. Delbrecca?
Yes.
And Ms. Glover Jones? All right, thank you very much. Passes 7-0. And
Can we clap now?
you can.
All right.
The microphone. Dr. Alvin Wilson, and she will administer the election for the vice president. It's the same process.
All right, so I will be calling nominations for the vice president.
I'd like to nominate Lisa Glover Jones.
Okay, a second is not required.
Move we close nomination.
I second.
So do I move to vote?
Yes.
Yep, go ahead and take the vote.
Okay, I'll take the vote. Dr. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Garden, Ms. Lindblad, Ms. Lomas,
Yes.
Yes.
Ms.
Yes.
Delbrecca, Ms. Lever, Ms. Silver Jones, and I vote yes. So it's 7-0.
That's the-
That's to close.
And that's to close. Okay, now we'll vote for the actual, okay? Dr. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Garden, Ms. Lindblad, Ms. Lonis,
Yes.
Ms. Delbrecca,
Absolutely.
Ms. Glover Jones, and I vote yes. All right. Now we move to the board representatives. At this time, we're going to be electing our delegate and alternate delegate to the Missouri School Board Association, or MSBA, and its member and alternate member to the Special School District Governing Council. So first things first, the MSBA. So is there any way to?
Well, collaborate, let's do it all in one motion.
Yes.
Do we motion them?
Yeah, so first you have to decide who's going to do it, and you can do one motion. If you tell me who's going to be what, I'll read a motion.
You gonna do it? Dr. Thomas is MSBA and I'll be the alternate.
Okay. Do we know,
Special School District?
Special School
Who's the
District.
alternate for MSBA? Oh, Jen, okay, listen.
do we,
Okay, and for SSD, I'd like to nominate Ms. Belgreco.
we don't need to nominate.
Oh, you
we just
don't?
need to
Okay.
know who.
We're just talking right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who's the alternate?
Does anybody want to be the alternate to the Special School District?
Okay, and Lisa will be alternate.
Okay, so
Now she's going to read the whole.
I will read a motion, if you are okay with it. So we would move that the board select Brad Thomas as its delegate to the Missouri School Boards Association and Jennifer Lonis as its alternate delegate, and select Ruth Belgreco as its member to the Special School District Governing Council, with Lisa Glover Jones as its alternate member.
So moved.
All right, so let's go ahead and take the vote. Mr. Gardner? Dr. Thomas?
Yeah.
Ms. Lobo? Ms. Lonis?
Yes.
Ms. Belgreco? And Ms. Glover Jones? And I vote yes. 7-0.
Now you can call service.
And so then I'd like to move to 3.07, call a 10-minute recess.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
So I think what we can do is like or next week.
There you go, the first meeting. Oh, yeah, the first. First time.
Yeah, yeah. Michelle,
Okay.
so she'll be all over. Thank you.
You be good.
I would be.
Yeah, that's right. I have everybody's paper scan. But I wanted you to know it wasn't. Right, you know. It's not like you have, it's like you don't know where I live or how much time. Okay.
Okay.
We're both vaccinated. Okay. So, at least you can do that. Yeah. Okay, I'll ask her. Yeah. Well, not a cold.
It was one of the things I wanted to have a conversation doesn't like my face.
Oh, do you have one of those things?
Yeah.
How are you doing? Good.
Just gonna ask her how your family is.
Now, where?
So did you
Hey, bring it on.
Hey, Chris, I have a question. I just want to know, I asked Michelle, she didn't know. I was the first one. Right. Sure. Okay.
I forgot what. That's what the real. That's. Is this right? I'm pretty sure it was 2 years. You can double check. What? I know George had one. I don't. Let's see if we can sign that. That's true.
That makes sense, yes.
Okay. Both of them.
Good night.
Night.
Okay, we ready?
I gotta ask, how are your shots coming along? Stepping it up the other day. Okay, you was, because I went up there and sat for a while because I got over 11,000.
Are we almost ready to go back?
That was the only.
I got mine.
Good. Hey, stranger.
Hey, how are you?
Wow, look at this.
I told
New
Michelle that
neighbors.
I wanted to sit over here because I couldn't go that far.
Yeah, you gotta be over here.
I can't see anybody. I'll wait until Lisa's in a sec.
Yes, yes. No, grab your seat, man. Grab your seat where you sit. No, I'm gonna be at the far side there. And then it'll be Jennifer, and then you, or whoever, all the way around. Yeah, I got to collaborate with Jennifer. We gotta do this. Yeah, so one day we'll go back to the Edinburgh.
All right, everybody all ready?
Hey.
Yeah. So I'd like to move now to 3.08, the budget update with Mr. Dwight Linkhorst.
And board members, we also have Dee Burns with us tonight also, who's going to give a follow-up on the SSD budget.
Good evening.
And of course, we can never meet our mission, our vision and our mission without enough resources. The equity statement for the district. For the business office and finance, that means that we allocate resources based on student need and not equally per building. So our current budget, you can see our original budget reflected a operating surplus of about 165,000. We've had some budget adjustments, but almost break even there. And so our current budget right now is at $207,000 operating surplus, and ending the year with 35.5% fund balances. So as we look at our current budget, we always think about budget recapture, which is the amount of expenditures that are under the budgeted expenditures and a percentage. And last year we had a large recapture of over 7%. And the year before that was an unusual year also, over 5%. Before that, over the 5 years previous to that, we had a range of either from 1.3% to 3.3%, an average of 2.45%. So this year, I would expect at least a $2 million budget recapture, which is about 2.75%. Could be more. So if we have a $2 million budget recapture this year, based on the current budget, you can see we'd have a surplus of about 2.2 million operating surplus, and we'd end up with over 39% fund balances. When we start looking at next year on revenue, assessed valuation, as Dr. Kilbride said, about half of our operating revenue comes from local property taxes. And this year is a reassessment year, as many of you will find out when you get your preliminary estimate very soon. So right now, the preliminary residential growth that the county is showing it for Ritenour is almost 14%. As I'm sure everyone has seen in the news, residential market's doing very well. The low interest rates have created quite a demand, especially for affordable houses. So that's why it's towards the very top of the whole county, actually. We met with the assessor today, school business officials did, and the highest district is a little over 15%. So we are towards the top of the county in residential increases. The preliminary decrease that they showed in commercial property was over 7%, but Mr. Zimmerman today said that they really have not finalized or even close to finalizing commercial property, and so we shouldn't count a lot on those preliminary numbers. While we did expect a decrease in commercial real estate because of the economy and pandemic, we're not sure where it would be. But even at this amount, we still can roll our tax rate up enough to offset that decrease. So we should be in okay shape. And they do not provide any preliminary amounts of personal property yet. A lot of personal property is in the automobiles, in the car rental places up by the airport. So we'll have to see. Hopefully that will hold okay. And then the preliminary new construction numbers, pretty good on residential, very average year, over $300,000 in preliminary new construction. And the commercial, very low, and we would expect that. I do not anticipate a recoupment rate this year. We do that every couple of years, looking at those refunds of prior taxes. And so we will not do a recoupment rate this year. As far as state revenue goes, as Dr. Kilbride said, the state adequacy target is going to stay the same for next year. The legislature is committed to appropriate the amount to fully fund the formula based on that SAT. And the only increase would be if our weighted average daily attendance would increase. I do not expect that based on attendance this year due to the pandemic and lower enrollment. Sales tax, though, on the state is actually holding very well through this year. And so I would expect continued small increases per student for next year. And we are getting federal COVID relief funds, as we just heard from the MSBA report. As far as expenditures go, salary, we'll have our salary increases as the board approves them tonight. Expected increase in health insurance of about 2%, and actually it looks like it might only be 1.5% based on the latest numbers we have. And looking at slight decreases in dental and life insurance also. Vision may be flat or a little increase based on the latest numbers I've seen. But most importantly, we are committed to adding more resources in next year's budget to address the learning loss and the gaps caused by the pandemic, as Dr. Monsees from DESE spoke on the MSBA report. So we will be offering an expanded summer school, well, hopefully both more students than we usually have, and extending that summer school into July further. We want to add additional counselors to help with those mental health issues from students, and additional reading interventionists for kindergarten and first grade in each elementary school. We've already started adding additional secondary math teachers, trying to help here at the end of the year, and we'll continue with them next year. And we'll add other additional teachers as we finalize the budget. Some of those I'm certain will be EL teachers, as Ms. Hahn will advocate again, as she always does. And now for more good news, Special Education Director V. Burns will provide an update on SSD staff. Yeah.
Okay. That's good. Thank you. So, I'm back. We were able to present in January and share a lot of information, quite a comprehensive presentation on special school district and the resources and the data associated with Ritenour. And as we've gone through the process, we wanted to come back and follow up with you on how, as we created the budget or presenting the budget, how we took that information and actually applied it to the district. So we wanted to do a little bit of a follow-up. So as an outcome of that conversation and looking at all of that data, the special school district will be increasing the director position from a 0.5 shared position. Currently, the director position is shared between the Ritenour and Pattonville school districts. Next year, Ritenour will have their own full-time director assigned to Ritenour. In addition, the budget was created asking for an additional social worker. I spoke a little bit about disproportionality funded social worker that we have over at Ritenour Middle School. And we are going to be, special school district will be funding an additional full-time social work position at Hake Middle School to work with that disproportionality in the area of suspension, some of that data that we shared as well. If you remember, we talked a little bit about trying to get that average caseload for each special education teacher to around 15 as an average, not everyone, but an average. There will be 2 additional special education teachers assigned to, one assigned to Ritenour Middle School and one to Pratt's Elementary, in order to start reducing those caseloads so that we can decrease the number of students in each of the groups at those 2 schools. In addition, there will be an additional full-time instructional coach. That instructional coach will primarily be focused on supporting the special education teachers, but will also be collaborating with the buildings and general ed teachers in supporting kids in their classroom. The budget was also created to include funds because we were able to show in that data that we have some staff that are getting some really nice results serving our students. And we wanted to have that teacher leadership and professional development. So the budget was created with funds that would compensate teachers for coming to professional development this summer, hopefully led and collaborated with in some of those teachers that have gotten some results that we would like to learn their strategies and how they work with the students in order to get those results, specifically in the area of ELA and numeracy skills. We are collaborating with Ms. Hahn in being able to use some of the early intervention services funds in order to continue to collaborate on those restorative practices, and we'll be funding and put budget in place in order to collaborate with general education and special education staff, a representative from each of those roles in each of the buildings in order to attend professional development this summer. We have increased significantly the amount of resources to expand that literacy, numeracy, and social emotional learning interventions. All of those materials have already been, that order has already been in place. I don't think it's, well, I guess it doesn't technically get placed until July 1, I apologize. And then also looking at resources through the Teaching, Learning, and Accountability Department to support those multi-tiered systems of support, or that RTI model that has been in place. So as we created that budget, we really took that data that was shared in January, and we wanted to take an opportunity to share with you, and how do we use that information and create a budget to support that work.
So we'll be happy to answer any questions for either one of us.
That sounds really good. I have a question. Since I know you were the director here, what is the benefit of just having a director here? What do you see the difference?
I can speak to that, but Dr. Kilbright might have additional information. My impression is that it really gives targeted support. But Dr. Kilbright, you might have thoughts.
Yeah, so Dee has been with us for the last 8 years, and during that time, she's been split between Ritenour and Pattonville the entire time. We've worked to make sure that Dee is a part of the district leadership team, but we also know that Dr. Pecoraro, the superintendent of the Pattonville School District, does the exact same thing. So the idea that we'll have a full-time director, where this is a district that's about relationship, it's also a district that's about data, using data to make decisions. The fact that our director has to balance a staff of hundreds of teachers here, as well as hundreds of teachers in Pattonville, different data sets. She's really got her feet in 2 different teams. And so the idea that we'll have a highly successful, highly functioning leader that's focused only on our Ritenour students, and not just students with IEPs. You know, good instruction is good instruction. And if there are interventions and strategies that students without IEPs could benefit from, we want to have that director that can help our area coordinators to track data and be a collaborator with our district academic leadership. So Ms. Hahn and I have taken a couple of interviews to this point. It's a collaborative decision between Special School District and Ritenour. Ultimately, the placement would come through Special School District, but I will say they've done a great job of making sure that our input is considered.
Great.
That decision is going to be made on the 27th of April. And I think in total, there are maybe 9 or 10 additional directors that are being hired across the county. There's 23 county school districts. And so it's a pretty big undertaking to include that number of new directors, so that each district over a certain threshold has their own, because there are some districts in St. Louis County. Brentwood is a perfect example with 744 students. You know, the disparity or the difference in workload between a district in total of 744 students, of which perhaps 15% would have an IEP, that the workload is pretty different. So I think special is just working to even.
That sounds good. Other questions? Why? I noticed in the list about what we're going to be hiring, there's nothing about TA. Is that because we're going to get more teachers now? TAs?
Yes, we've talked about TAs also, but because when we asked principals about TAs, and they really talked about reading interventionists to help the lower grades, that was their priority over a TA.
So we've been talking about TAs for some time, and we've heard the board feedback about teacher assistants. Part of the data that Dwight has done for class size projection, it's possible that we may end up having to hire 8 to 10 additional teachers to address class size increases. Do you want to speak on that, Dwight?
Yeah, I mean, so enrollment projections is not a science. It is based on historical cohort survival, meaning how many first graders become second graders the next year and so on. But based on those projections, and kindergarten is really difficult because this year was just completely an abnormal year because of so many kindergarten students did not register and attend this year. So based on what we actually see, we could actually have to add, as Chris said, 8 or 10 more teachers. And we're trying to get a handle on that, along with what you're going to hear next, the Ritenour Virtual Academy, and how that might affect class size. So that's why my last line was just other additional teachers. We know we're going to add more, we just don't know how many.
So the interventionists, though, doesn't pull the kids out of the classroom?
It can be both. It can be either pull out or it can be push in for either co-teaching or intervention in the classroom. The goal of an interventionist is to have small groups to reduce the number of students that a teacher is working with at one time. It could be either outside the room or inside.
Who decides that?
Really at the building level, there's a couple of different models for how that happens. When I was a principal, I preferred that the interventionist pushed into the classroom. So you'd have two teachers working with small groups. There are other principals that have systems to pull it out. It's a building decision.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
I did have a question, found in the form of reading intervention. So I noticed we referenced the elementary levels. What does that look like on our secondary level? I think we kind of see some gaps as well on our secondary level.
Yeah, the conversations around interventionists at the secondary levels, there's work to be done around the RTI system at the secondary level, high schools especially. That's a conversation we're going to engage Dr. Haywood with because it's clear that she has significant knowledge and experience around an RTI system at the secondary level. What we haven't committed to yet is additional interventionists at the secondary level because we don't want to put additional adults into a system where they're not able to be highly successful. Want to make sure that that RTI system, which at the district level, it's well built out, but in terms of implementation, especially at the high school level, it's not being implemented. So those conversations with Dr. Haywood are going on. And if we can feel confident that there is a good structure in place, then that would be an allocation we go with.
So what are we using to gauge that structure? Testing or is it other methods?
Yeah, so really it's through observation. It's also through student performance. So we work to get engaged with student support teams at Ritenour High School, and we see and we hear different things in terms of fidelity. There are some staff members and some teams that are more well-functioning and there's a higher level of fidelity, whereas in other cases, we see absolutely no fidelity to the process. So it's through observation and through student data.
And I would just add, as far as the budget goes, as you all know, we've talked about two things. Well, two things. The budget can be adjusted and we can add people later. We prefer to add them at the beginning, but we can add them later as needed. And we've talked about the ESSER funds, and those are specifically to address those learning gaps and the learning losses that have taken place during the pandemic. So we have room to adjust them and add them as we need to over the next year.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you, Dwight. Thank you, Dee.
Thank you.
Next, we'll move to 3.09, RBA 2.0. Dr. Deneen Stewart, Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction, will present the RBA update to the Board of Education.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So first I want to introduce, can you hear me? First, I would like to introduce Dr. Dillon. He has been very instrumental. He's a consultant for Ritenour School District, and he's been working very closely with Ritenour Virtual Academy. So we are presenting this together. We have a committee for Ritenour Virtual Academy, and we meet weekly to discuss RBA and what we need to do and how changes we need to make. So I want to introduce Dr. Dillon.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning. It feels like morning already. So yeah, fair enough. It's great to be here and thank you for the opportunity to serve the district throughout the year. It's been fantastic to start, spin up, and work to make this program successful. And we're excited to share some of those results with you tonight.
Okay, we're excited to share, like Dr. Dillon said, some of the results and ideas that we have for RBA 2.0 for next year. First, wanted to share with you a few pictures of and examples of our students learning virtually The top picture is a teacher that's demonstrating how to add two-digit numbers. And then you'll see to the right, one student that is reading by themselves asynchronously. So these are just some examples. Additionally, these are a few examples, science, project-based learning examples. At the top, you'll see two pictures of a student that is creating a bridge and designing a bridge and a structure that you would create on a body of water, basically. So it shows how you can create this structure over a body of water. And then that second picture in the second row really is a student that's studying landfills and creating landfills. Also wanted to share with you a few quotes from some of our teachers in Ritenour Virtual Academy. I won't read the quotes to you, but you will see how many of our teachers are describing the relationships that they are forming with students and how the technology skills of students have really thrived in that environment as well. Here's another quote from another teacher that's really talking about the stronger communication and connections that she has made with her students and how online learning resources have been really, it's really great for students to have access to those online resources all day. Also, assessment for learning strategies. She's saying that basically she is able to implement some assessment for learning strategies and allow her students to retake assessments as well. Also wanted to share with you, Ritenour Virtual Academy evaluate results, the estimated proficiency for February. In the first column, you'll see the grade level. Second column is Ritenour School District ELA, the average of all of the third, or fourth, or fifth graders. And then the next column, you'll see ELA, RVA, the average for RVA. We pulled that data out. And then the next column, you will see Ritenour School District math average for all the students at third, fourth, and fifth grade. And then the next column, you'll see RVA, the average that has been pulled out. When you look at this data, you see how our students are really showing growth in RVA as well. When we look at the strengths and opportunities, we held a strategic planning meeting on February 23rd and asked for feedback from our teachers, our students, and our parents about what are some of the strengths, what's going well, what are some opportunities in Ritenour Virtual Academy. We want to make sure that we have these conversations every year for our continuous improvement of Ritenour Virtual Academy. So when we look at that, we'll see strengths. Instruction is a strength. We see our students learning and they're creating and they're learning from those experiences. You heard earlier, I think it was last month from Ms. Gilliam that talked about the tech competencies of our teachers. Our teachers are growing and learning some of those competencies with technology. And then we see the implementation of Seesaw and Google Classroom and how our teachers are learning a lot about that platform. And then the communication and the positive relationships that have been formed with students. But there's also some opportunities. When we say schedules, some of our parents and students have talked about having more instructional time. Some students are saying, I need more time with my teacher. That 11 to 1 time in the middle of the day, some teachers have used that time to put small groups, but we want to structure a time for our teachers to teach the students during that time frame. Also, we have changed asynchronous learning to self-directed time. We think that that is a clear statement and it helps our families understand what needs to happen during that time. Also, assessment formats, we want to really talk about how should we take evaluations. That has been a big question about how you're taking evaluate at home and whether that is valid data. So we want to really look at that. Also, we have talked about the online resources and whether we need to trim that down and just have a few that we're looking at, maybe Flipgrid or a few resources versus all the resources that we have used. So that is another opportunity.
I'll continue talking a little bit about that process. One, we surveyed families and got a lot of great feedback from RVA families about how things were going. I'm going to show you some graphs here in a moment. And then we held the first of 2 listening sessions, one that happened in February, one that's going to happen in May, that allows us just to continue to feedback. And part of my role is to continue to kind of be an action researcher. What's not going well? How can we fix it? How can we make real-time connections and corrections? And how can we be ready for next year? This was an extraordinary year, but there was a lot to learn within the mess. And so here's some of the things that we picked up on, was that we also found that home connectivity was actually something we need to continue to work on, but was actually a relative strength of what was going on. And then we looked at some of these other areas, and I want to show you some graphs. From our survey, it was pretty incredible that over 80% of our families said that the Ritenour Virtual Academy supported the well-being of our children and families. That's not just academically, but really taking care of the other needs. And that's a huge number, and we wanted to put that out front. The second thing that we really looked at was how confident were they in that learning was happening. We've heard the narrative around the country that virtual learning equals no learning. That's not what our parents are saying. They're saying they're getting high quality instruction. To say that extremely confident, somewhat confident those things are happening. Certainly I'd love for that green bar to be all the way across, but we'll take this for now. The other thing that came from this is, do you feel like your child is making academic progress? 70% of our families said yes and feel like they're making progress there. One of the things I'm always concerned about, I have 2 daughters, are they on their screens too much, and do parents feel that way? Our parents at RVA really felt comfortable with the amount of screen time that students had for their work. So that's something we want to continue to watch, because that's a balance issue that we want to make sure we hit just the sweet spot with. A couple of other pieces of feedback, not to get redundant, but it is those pieces about using the right platforms, having the right access, having the right technology. We had enough of those things. Now it's time to just really fine tune that and make sure that we're really in the sweet spot where we need to be.
So we also, this is the structure that we use to get feedback from our students, from our teachers, from our parents, using these 4 Ds. Discovery is the first step. We talk about what's going well. What do you like about RVA? And then the next step was dream. What do you think it could look like? Like, what do you want to make sure that you have in RVA? And then the session 3 and 4, which we're going to follow up with, is the design. So we're going to create that together. And then destiny is how do we sustain this? What do we need to do next time? How do we improve this? So that's that continuous cycle of continuous improvement.
I should mention, one of the things that was my favorite part of this is we asked students, what are the strengths, what are the challenges? And I got to watch a couple hundred 45-second videos of our students. It was a lot, but it's really been culled down into something that is pretty powerful. We'll make sure you get a hold of that. We had the elementary version already for our design meeting, and now the middle school version of that and feedback from our students. We think that's really important to make sure, just as you do with your board representative, making sure we're hearing our students in this process.
And that was good information. We had some of our second graders talking about, they want to be in school longer. And they like, having that hour. Some of them said they like having that hour lunch, and some of them, they don't want that. So it was good information. Also from our middle school students who wanted more time with the teacher. They said they needed more of that one-on-one time and the small group time. So all of that information is important. So we talked about this being Virtual Academy 2.0 this next year, because we are in a continuous cycle of improvement. So the operating assumptions that we have, we really met as a committee, and with input, like I said before, of our teachers, of administrators, of parents, came together and talked about, okay, what should RVA look like next year? We want to make sure it's high quality. choice for our families. And we also want to make sure that we're looking at it as a lower class reduction in classrooms as well. So looking at K through 5, we're talking about having approximately about 75 students per grade level. We want to make sure that it's sustainable. We have a lot of students in RVA this year, so we're going to make sure that it's smaller and grow it and make sure that it's quality as well. So we want to make sure it's sustainable. And then we know that we may not be able to accept all students. So we want to have a process in place that's fair, that's equitable. So we want to make sure that we involve a building SSP to look at students to see who will be successful in this environment. We also want to make sure that we have a lottery system first so that it's fair, so that it's equitable to our families. And we want to make sure, like I said, we have an SSP process after that to say, okay, well, let's look at the skills that are necessary for students to be successful in a virtual environment. There's a list of skills that many schools use across the state, the skills that are necessary, like time management, work completion, those types of things.
Yeah, and then just at the middle school, a lot of the similarities in size and scope, but worth noting that third point there is that we're really wanting to make sure that RVA doesn't become a concurrent teaching situation. And I think that term hopefully means something to everyone. We're making sure that teachers aren't teaching virtual students and in-person students at the same time. And so that's going to be a real key to kind of how we frame RVA for the middle school. And then we will be having the teachers at the middle school, they will have some sections that were virtual and some that are in person, but they won't be concurrent. And I think that's a really important kind of bright star we're holding on to for the middle school. Not to the high school.
Not to the high school. So the same would apply to the high school. We're going to avoid that concurrent teaching model that they've had all year. We know that the high school has a complex high school schedule. So we're not going to create that same virtual cohort the way it's done in middle school. Rather, we're looking at sections of classes and courses that can be provided, virtual sections for our students. And we know that data has shown that some of our students struggled in this virtual learning environment at the high school. So we want to make sure that we're providing more in-person learning as possible for students, but we're going to offer virtual sections where possible for our students as well.
Awesome. So really the selection process, we're really getting fine-tuned to where we want to do. But I think just as Dr. Stewart said, fair, equitable, holding on to those pieces, but making sure that we are able to get let people really know about that process. And that's going to be happening fairly soon after we're informing you here. And then we just want to make sure that we're setting students up for success. And I think that's the most important part here is that we want all the families that want their kids in the virtual academy up to the number. But we also don't want to put students in there that aren't going to be successful in that program. So that's just a really important thing. We've done a real good kind of review, study, observation of what is working and what isn't working. And we want to make sure we're setting students up for success.
But I also want to go back and really focus on that last point there, that the high school virtual learning committee is also coming together to follow up on what that should look like at the high school. So as we look at Encores and Specials, we want to make sure that we looked at these three options for our students, but we favored the first option, which is elementary, which share schedules. If they share students, they're going to share a schedule so that they can have those specialists can provide support and learning for students at two different schools. So they have to have the same schedule in order to do that. As far as the secondary at the middle school level, they will have the same schedules as well, but teachers will teach sections and just kind of like the high school structure. So the teacher may have 2 or 3 periods that they're teaching virtual students only, and they may have sections where they're teaching in-person students
We spent a lot of time talking about music, art, and PE and making sure it works for RVA. The easy part is, hey, we can get a teacher to teach a great group of kids and teach all of the core subjects. To make this a well-rounded program, these are the devil in the detail pieces, but we've been working hard to make sure those pieces work. And then along with these pieces, we want to make sure our middle school students still have that husky time to make sure character lessons are happening, intervention, social emotional supports. We want to make sure that grade levels are still able to do the things that we love about learning, field trips, and making sure that those sorts of things happen. So we're working on what it looks like to have virtual field trips and maybe even gather as a virtual cohort in person every once in a while. And then really the shift from, hey, we did great learning, but now how do we get into the more in-depth sorts of things around project-based learning, especially K-5 in the virtual environment? Lots of models emerging around the country on how to do that well, and our teachers are ready to do that as well.
So we know that families have many choices in Missouri and just really across the country. We want to make sure that we have options for our families. We want to offer a Ritenour Virtual Academy. We want that to be a high quality option for our families. We know that they have other options, charter schools and other virtual learning options as well. But we want to make sure that every year we're continuously growing our program, making sure that we are getting input from parents and students and teachers and administrators on how we can tweak the program and make sure that it meets the needs of all of our students. So we want to make sure that it's a quality program. And one indicator that shows that Ritenour Virtual Academy has been a successful program is that our MOCAP, we talk about that all the time. We have 8 students in MOCAP right now, but 10 students have come back to Ritenour Virtual Academy. So it was 18 at first. 10 have returned to Ritenour because of different reasons. Some reasons adequate progress was not being made. And in some reasons, some parents said, no, I want my child to go back to Ritenour. So that's one indicator that we have had some success in Ritenour Virtual Academy.
If I could just jump in there, board members, that's $63,000 that came back into the Ritenour school district.
Right.
Just the fact that they thought it was better here to see what was out there. Is testament to it.
And 4 of those students were in MOCAP last year. So it was only 4 new students really this year. So any questions?
The quotes that were by the teachers, what grade levels were they?
I can't hit you.
I don't know what grade levels those teachers were. I think those were all elementary though.
They were all what?
I
think they were all in the elementary. I don't know exact grade levels.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
One is really long. Was it key to the middle?
Oh, the quote she's saying.
Yeah, which grade
one
level?
is middle, one
Oh,
is
okay.
middle school science teacher. Yeah, and the other 2 are elementary.
No, those are the 2.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Man, I wish I could memorize all of our teachers' names.
Yeah.
And then we were getting the teacher input on the design for the specials. I hope you are. Yes?
Yes.
Because I'm thinking like the music department. It seems like they're gonna have more, either going to be another teacher or you're gonna have to be more because they have different levels of like choir, they have different choirs and band they have different groups. And so I don't know how you work when you say they're going to be virtual and they're going to be, but they're just not going to do it.
Well, no, I wouldn't say that. I know we've talked with middle school principals about different opportunities and times to possibly make sure that students are getting those options as well. So, yeah.
In reality, Ruth, so much of the RVA was considering the encore, the exploratory schedule, that it was driving so much of the decisions. And so, like what it would look like for encore is, again, the idea of in-person and virtual at the same time is what we're trying to drive out. All the data and all the feedback from the teachers is that's not possible. And I think we also want to build in flexibility so that teachers maintain their virtual muscles to teach virtually. So we're going to have that, I think, at the secondary level. We're not going to have virtual only teachers there, because based on student need, there may be more teachers that are having to teach virtual next year if they're not this year. Just want to keep those muscles up so we can have some flexibility.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, 3.10 Surveillance Upgrade Update by Mr. Michael Smith, Director of Operations, will provide an update on the bids that were recently received for surveillance upgrades.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right, just like to give you a quick update on a Prop S project that we have been planning that we discussed last year about upgrading some surveillance cameras around the district. Of course, we know that having safe schools helps us meet our mission and vision, and that our facilities should provide the best physical environment for learning to occur, and all district schools should provide consistent and equitable environments for learning. In 2019, the Board of Education approved a $186,000 project to upgrade surveillance throughout the district. So now we have surveillance cameras at every entrance, on the inside and outside of every entrance, and also covering the parking lots. Thanks to Proposition S, one of the planned projects at that time was to further improve surveillance, which would include replacing 22 cameras throughout the district, adding 46 cameras, and then replacing the video server at the Early Childhood Center. Sent out an RFP and 3 companies responded, and TSI provided the lowest bid at $62,363. Just want to let you know that even the second company that came in, $74,000, those are both very low prices. So we're getting a very good value for this work. TSI has performed work in dozens of school districts in Missouri, and especially around St. Louis. And I spoke with directors in Hazelwood and First Floor, and they provided positive feedback about TSI. And therefore, next week, I will be recommending that the Board of Education approve the bid of $62,363 by TSI to improve video surveillance systems in the Ritenour School District. And if you have questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Is there something we're waiting for?
So yeah, so board members, the whole reason this is coming to you tonight is we're just wanted to bring it to your attention before we ask for your approval. You can always, if you're comfortable moving forward with approving something, you can choose to do
that. So we put it out as a standard camera. When we did that improvement back in 2019, we went to a standard camera throughout the district. One that would work inside of buildings, one that would be a single camera outside, and then another one outside that would have 4 cameras, which is called a multi-sensor camera. So we standardized those cameras so that, because there's such good quality of cameras, the clarity of these cameras is amazing, and to look at one of those and one of, something that's around since 2012, complete difference. And so the reason that we're actually making these improvements is for those old cameras that are still outside, to make sure that they are being replaced and upgraded. So they were all standard cameras. It's just they came in at such different prices. Yeah.
Madam President, I would like to make a motion to approve these things in the system tonight. I will move that the Board of Education approve the bid of $62,363 by TSI to approve the video surveillance system in the River School District.
Do I have a second?
What was the amount of the budget?
I was planning on around $100,000, Ruth, and which is where Tech Electronics came in. And so for it to come in at 62 was a real treat. It makes my job easier when Dwight is happy. So.
I will take the vote. Mr. Gardner?
Yes.
Dr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Lawrence?
Yes.
Ms. Glover Jones? Ms. Bokerko?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next up. 3.1 or 3.11 personnel recommendations. Dr. Michael Chance, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, will present the current personnel recommendations to the Board of Education for approval.
I'd like to present items 1 through 17 for the board's approval. I'm open to any questions you may have. Those are people who are completing student teaching. This semester, we have a very strong pool of, actually a very strong pool of applicants this year, and many of them are finishing up their student teaching currently. So you can see retirements that we've had recently, as well as some separations. We've worked to fill those separations as soon as possible with some new hires that are also in the list.
Mike, as we move more and more into using, computers with students, one-on-one throughout the school district, has our approach to various tests and scenarios that we get the campus, has that changed where we want to see how we are with computers?
Yeah, actually, it's changed quite a bit. So even all of the teacher recruitment fairs, everything is digital or has been digital this year, and it's been customary in Ritenour for lesson demonstrations, and that's all happening digitally this year as well. And in many cases, if someone is student teaching or in a classroom already, sometimes they're sending us in advance videos of their instruction and their technical skills in advance as part of their really part of their candidacy. And then we've been also using those Fridays where students are learning virtual, and some of our applicants are providing lessons to Ritenour students while we're evaluating that instruction before we make a recommendation for hire. On the flip side of that, we do have a large group of first-year teachers next year in the industry of education that did their full student teaching virtually. So that's a whole different experience. So they will had conversations with Evelyn Gilliam. They're going to need different levels of support as we have students back and they're accustomed to interaction with students on the screen. So we'll be preparing for different types of support for them too.
Do I have a second? Let's take a vote. Mr. Garden? Dr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Lonis?
Yes.
Ms. Clover Jones? Ms. Bill Greco?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Motion to approve number 14.
Second.
Let's take the vote. Mr. Garden? Dr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Lonis? Ms. Clover Jones? And Ms. Bill Greco? And I vote yes. Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Routine.
Moving to 3.12, board member comments.
Today, what I saw, I don't think I would make a general session today for SBA. But it was really good. They brought up about IDEA was passed in 75 with the promise that 40% of the funds would be paid by the federal government, and to date, they've only paid 14%, and then we have 7 million students that fall in that category. So I thought that was mind-opening. Although I already knew it, but it's just horrible. Each day they're going to talk about the Magna Awards, and the one they talked about today was less than 5,000 enrollment, and it was the Mashpee in Massachusetts, where they're connecting their tribes. The Wampanoag tribe, Indian tribe, which is one of the tribes that the Pilgrims actually dealt with from the beginning when they came over. They now are teaching, the way they're trying to help with equity in their school district is they're now teaching the Wampanoag language. That's one thing that they're learning, which I thought was really, really interesting. They also had 2 Girl Scouts that they recognized for projects. Girl Scouts did a thing on mental health regarding teens through the pandemic. And one of them did a website with self-therapy workshops, and the other one's big thing was self-esteem and suicide, and how people were feeling disconnected. And so she, did stuff about that. The president, the CEO, Anna Chavez, interviewed Leslie Odom Jr., who was the individual who played Aaron Burr in Hamilton. He was very, his story was good. He talked about that when he was a student, he was very average and he had a lot of behavioral issues. And when he was in 5th grade, his social studies teacher told him he should try out for some kind of a contest that they had. Long story short, he did very well in it. And when he was 17 years old, Disney offered him a part, and his parents decided that he would go to college instead. And he said, well, that is the lessons I took from that was that was their last decision for me. And from then on, he would make his own decisions. And that the other thing that he said that he still pushes is that you always have control over your yeses and your nos. And that's your power, and you should set your own boundaries. He evidently did a lot in a diverse perspective, and he was one who fought for against the diversity in the payment of the people in the Hamilton production. I thought that was interesting too. And let's see. He ended with doing 2 songs from Hamilton, which was really, really fun. And one of them was No One Else Was in the Room When It Happened. You remember that? Mm-hmm. And he worked in the word Zoom too. No one else was in Zoom when it happened, so it was really good. He did talk about that there's a change going to come. It's a song that he sang in the Sam Cooke production. And he says what makes him hopeful is that the future generations don't have the same thoughts of the older generations, that they're doing more things that they're not growing up with the same things that he grew up with, or actually it was actually Chavez who said she grew up in a very diverse poor neighborhood, and that she saw where hate was taught, you know, and she's just glad that things are getting better now. So it was very good first session, and if you guys get the chance, I would suggest that you try to get to the other two. I think it'll be good. So I just thought I'd share that with you since I was able to do that today.
No,
And
thank
the
you.
number one thing is racism is held up by systems, not by people.
Mhm.
And we all know that, and we know we have a big important part as far as education system that we can help change that. And so it does start at home and at school, but we are the ones who can really make a difference in the world of education.
Yeah, I can mirror also, it was interesting because they are really on the tune of mindfulness and mental health. And so I'm very much looking forward to a couple of the sessions coming up tomorrow because I pulled it up on my screen. They actually have websites where that you can connect with hotspots on their school district sites to where you can actually, if you're having an emotional issue, click on there, and then there's like actual tools that you can use. So I think that that's going to be a very useful thought when kids especially get back into the classroom and they're going to have a lot of anxiety. Any other comments?
So locally, we had some changes to our aldermen and councilmen in the areas of cities that we overlap with. I think maybe a priority for the board is to reach out again to these cities and to the aldermen and renew maybe our partnerships and good lines of communication with them. So they get to know us, we get to know them. When those lines of communication break down, we have things like Overland Plaza and such. I talked to Marty Little on election day, and he wasn't aware of a lot of things as far as the communication or lack thereof between Overland and us. They were told something different. So I think we need to reach out to these guys somehow, in person, electronically, maybe make up a monthly newsletter from Ritenour to the cities, to the council, that could be read into their minutes. I think that might be a good step in renewing our relationships with these 9 cities that we represent.
Touching base, especially after COVID, our separation. Sounds like a good idea. Any more comments?
Think we got 2 good board members that we just have elected and placed. Look forward to the next year. Really do.
Yeah, so board members, the plans for testing they're fleshed out, and Ms. Hahn is meeting with the building testing coordinators. We've got a larger window this year for testing to be completed. All of the assessments have to be in buildings. And so working at targeting Fridays for those days that students might be virtual to work on getting some of our virtual students back into building to get some of the assessments done. So there are a number of pieces that have been stripped away from DESE. So level not determined, we're usually accountable for if we have more than 5% of the students that don't complete the test, then the tests are invalidated. That accountability has been stripped away because we realize it might be a bit more of a struggle to get kids back in if they're virtual all year to take the test. But we're making all good faith efforts for students to come in and get the assessments completed. For a lot of the students that are virtual, that actual testing window is going to be compacted. Whereas we might stretch out ELA or math over the course of a week. For students, we're trying to compress that into a day or 2 for them to complete the assessment, because the likelihood that a student, if we stretch out the math assessment over the course of a week, over 4 or 5 days, the likelihood that a student might be absent for a day or so on is stronger. So compressing that part into a day or two, but DESE has opened up the window to a longer stretch because they realize it's going to be a bit of a struggle to get all students assessed this year. Our assessment window goes all the way up to, we're eligible to test kids until the last day of school, which is the 21st of May. We're not going to do that. So we're going to cut it off earlier in that week to get students completed, to get their testing complete.
Thank you.
All right, any more? All right, let's move to 4.0, consent agenda.
Move we approve consent agenda items 4.01 through 4.06 as presented.
May I have a second? Second, thank you. Ms. DeGarden? Yes. Dr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Lonis?
Yes.
Ms. Glover Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Belbrecka?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Motion carries. Moving on to 5.0, closed session. May I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to reconvene in closed session per state statute 610-021 for the purpose of discussion of personnel agenda items.
Second.
Take the vote. Ms. DeGarden? Dr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Lonis?
Yes.
Ms. Glover Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Belbrecka?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
It was Lisa.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so board members, we'll take a brief recess and we'll reconvene in the art gallery.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, it's hard.